Episode 16. Dude, I don't know. These are always so bad because I look at I can rewatch the YouTube videos and I'm always looking. I just always choke because I never know what day it is.
Episode 16. May 23rd.
5 p.m. 17 minutes, past 5 p.m. PST. Episode 17.
I haven't even said the date yet.
All right. And I just skipped it. All right. Episode 16. Driveline Research and Drinks podcast. Filmed on May 23rd, Sunday.
Saturday.
5 p.m.
It's Saturday.
It's sunny in Australia, baby. It is.
Saturday,
I'm Alex Caravan, your co-host, co-swag manager of baseball analytics. Just finished some personal life talk that I'm down to splice in if Brady's got the courage for it.
Maybe episode 160.
160
or 160.
What are you drinking?
Oh, dude, I don't even know what I'm drinking. I'm drinking a Otis oatmeal stout.
What's Otis?
Baby. It's Four Peaks. Four Peaks in Arizona has that oatmeal stout. You gonna hit some Four Peaks, Anthony?
Damn, dude, already giving away spicy segment. Just you're just giving it away right away. I'm Anthony Brady, Driveline Baseball, Biomechanist, R&D, co-host the Research and podcast today, drinking Corona in a bottle.
Lindley, Driveline R&D engineer, drinking a Elysian Dayglow IPA.
Nice. Couple things. First, where's Otis? I don't know. I've never heard of that before. Where's that brewery at? And where'd you get it?
Eugene, Oregon. I got it at Met Market. Where my
it just looked pretty fire.
My extremely trendy girlfriend gave me a ride to yesterday.
Nice. Have you guys been since you guys are West Seattle?
I didn't know how to say anything. This is making it worse.
You guys have been in West Seattle for a bit. Have you been to Thriftway?
That's the one over by the junction, right? It's like down south.
Yeah. Is that the one Max always goes to?
No, I think you might be thinking of PCC.
That's right. It's right next to me. We went once. It's like kind of like Sprouts or like Whole Foods or something, but I thought it was in the name. I was like, oh, this is probably like in Arizona, there's Food City, like bargain grocery stores. And that's what I was assuming it was going to be. Works up because it's Thriftway, but turns out that's not the case.
Not that
they had the most, like the highest end wine that I've seen at a grocery store. And like
quick thing I wanted to just lead off with, since we all mentioned we're co-hosts. Just wanted this for future feedback, or not future feedback, just kind of putting out there. I talked to my old business partner Mikey this last week. I talked to him for like an hour or so on the phone, showed him the podcast, and he kept mentioning, because he was asking, he's like, oh, that's the guy that crashed over like at my place, right? Brady. He's like, yeah. But before he was like, he specifically mentioned like, oh, that's like the host of the podcast. Like, well, we're all co-hosts. He's like, because he saw the one where you're like, why don't you go ahead and take 15 seconds to introduce yourself and say what you're doing.
Nice.
And I was like, no, we're all co-hosts. He's like, no, but there's like one main host. Like, no, there isn't, dude. Yeah. There's 3 co-hosts. We're all on each episode. I was getting so annoyed.
I'm gonna run with that for however long we do this. I'm gonna introduce myself as the host, and then you guys can continue to introduce yourselves as co-hosts. So thanks, Mikey. That's huge. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well, I was about to say, why don't you go ahead and tell the viewers what exactly you do at, besides lead biomechanist, what do you do at Driveline?
Do some biomechanics
now
stuff.
Caravan's the host. He just took it over.
Yeah.
Caravan's the host.
It's like, yeah, 15 seconds. Got my. Oh, dude, Lindley.
What's up?
Sent a place to Caravan the other day. Pretty fire.
Is it in West Seattle still?
Yeah. Just up the road from us, where we are right now.
Are you gonna send it to me too, or am I gonna have to imagine?
I could send it to you, but you already locked down south, man.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, our timelines were just very, very different.
2 boats.
I didn't realize you guys were
2 boats crossing in the night.
I honestly didn't realize you guys were operating on, or I'd forgotten you guys are operating on a different timeline. Like I know, I'm not saying like I know I was like extremely lazy. Like you guys would send back links and I'd just be like, reply like 8 hours later, like, yeah, that looks fire or something.
Yeah. We were in a bit of a kerfuffle too. There, or like our old place, Devin was subleasing
Everyone's in
informally
kerfuffles.
from Brian, and we didn't tell the apartment complex, and that's technically a breach of the lease. So, and then we got into this thing.
We would never do that stuff, by the way.
Yeah, we would never, and we should 100% not get into. Yeah, just keep going.
Anyways, so they asked Devin for his like our old apartment complex asked Devin for his permission to provide like lease information. We're like, oh no, they're gonna like figure out that Brian's not living there anymore, and then they're gonna tell our new potential landlord that we're not good tenants, and we just like we're tripping that we might not be able to get into the place that we're currently in, but ended up okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, we would have had to find a place in like 2 days.
Also, as the host of the podcast, was talking to San. We talked about him on the last episode, Pitch AI, all that stuff. He sent some feedback. He sent the podcast to their designer, and 2 minutes in, apparently, she responded with saying, "This is just a bunch of bros hanging out." Ha 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 ha. Which, like, the more that I've thought about it, and how kind of like these intros are like the longest podcast intro ever, and we just like talk about nothing related to research or Driveline or baseball,
and hopefully slowly progressively
like
getting longer and longer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people just tune in and they're like, "What?" This is just like three dudes at Driveline just like talking about stuff, drinking beers. But then at the end of the episode, we end it with like the most like complex like research related thing with like article review. Yeah. You gotta let us I don't know, get loosened up with each other. Get into that.
Dude,
with us?
Actually, this is speaking of, and after this we can get into it. But I'm down. This might be the best random intro content stuff, because I'm gonna ask you on air on podcast.
Man. This could be dangerous. I just don't know.
This is extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Just know before you ask it, like, whatever you ask, a couple extra minutes of editing work on my end.
First of all, Anthony, you're gonna get mad at me.
Move on.
Anthony, you're gonna get mad at me for giving it away in my Four Peaks comment when you have cacti behind you.
Cactuses are everywhere, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Look,
saying.
This is almost a cactus on my arm. It's a tree. It's a pine tree.
Plus,
also, again, we are primarily our listeners. Shout out Spotify, Apple Podcasts, are still, they wouldn't have seen the cacti.
Yeah, I was providing some imagery. So
okay, go ahead.
Last week
as the host, Caravan, go ahead.
Okay, I'll ask.
Man, I just got
the host is
main host. Take it away, Lindley.
The host has spoken. Caravan, go ahead.
I'm the host. So as the host, I'm gonna update my last week in Driveline R&D.
This is good. I'm actually super on board with this because I don't know what Caravan was gonna say or where it was gonna go, and like it's like a wave of anxiety crashed on me and then left. So keep going.
I was gonna sneak it in. In a coded segment. I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna ask, and I'm only gonna give it 10 seconds. I'm gonna within that 10 seconds. I'm gonna ask, then get your response, then move on.
But I'll 22 minutes into the recording in case I need to edit this out. Just gonna write that down. Go ahead.
No. First, I want to hear Lindley's update.
Okay.
So last week I worked on studies again. I put together some figures. Last week is a full week this time.
Week 38 in quarantine. Week 3 at the new house.
Put together some figures for the weighted ball amount study, or the weighted ball study. So we're gonna try to get that pushed out first, I think.
Oh yeah. We're good now.
You didn't respond to those, by the way. We were going back and forth. I was really excited about the end product, and then you just
the end product it's so fire. I'm sorry for not responding. I think like we were talking back and forth, and then I don't remember what happened. I think it was like car stuff. I think I might have been had like a couple phone calls, but no, they look really really good.
Gotcha. No, that's what it is. That's what the question was.
No.
And then
that would be the tamest Caravan question ever.
some Modus backend things, finished a book, started a book, and did some requests. So the training floor sometimes hits the R&D department up with some questions.
Which
about
books?
I finished Blink. I was actually going to ask you. You've read the Gladwell books.
Malcolm
Did
Gladwell.
you,
Oh wait, no, I haven't read that.
Did you read Blink?
Mm-hmm.
Blink is good. I can't tell if I like it more than Outliers or not, but it was very good. I got through it quick because it was pretty entertaining.
Those are good. Those are good, like rereads section by section, too. Like they're always like ones that I go back and rescope, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and we can talk about these for a second, because I was probably gonna put a post at Basecamp, because for our listeners we have a check-in that asks people what they're reading continuing education. I might not, though, because I'm kind of boycotting the book reviews in there. I have always looked at like the whole thing, like idea of thin slicing, as a bad thing, because it's usually riddled with bias.
Yep.
But this is the first book and the first like piece to kind of talk about it in a positive light and talk about it for So that was pretty interesting. I think that you just have to like deliberately take away the bias, and then your ability to provide a thin slice, like gut reaction, could be really valuable. So in the absence of a bunch of explicit information, you can still make really good decisions and whatnot. So that was pretty interesting.
What book did you start? What's a new one?
I'm going to start. Mark Andreessen put a book list up about building in cities and things, and like I listened to one of his podcasts, and he has really good perspective.
Like architecture or like building a business?
No, just like why cities are valuable to like society.
Oh, interesting.
And because he had a We Need to Build blog that he wrote, so I read that, listened to his podcast, and his first reading list that I looked at was actually what got me into reading in the last couple of years. So I'm going to read one of those. But the book that I actually started was Joan Vickers' Perception and Cognition book about quiet eye, which is awesome. Vickers. And Joan Vickers, she does a lot of visual motor research, and she coined quiet eye, and she wrote this pretty awesome book. So, and I also have a kind of a summary document that I put together to have in the hitting department. So,
do you remember what was the name of that book that Colin mentioned when we were driving back?
I have it written down.
It was like the one about the boat.
Something about ships.
Yeah, it was like that guy like takes over like the worst ship in the fleet, and he like turns it into the best. It was like a Navy thing. Remember the name of that?
Turn the ship around.
Turn the ship around. Is that what it was?
Yep, Captain David.
I might have to. I finished a book. It was actually one that I reread and also started a new one. But to be fair, the one that I finished, it was just an audiobook, and
during your drive to Anthony, give us your updates.
Last week,
as the host of the Driveline Baseball Research and Drinks podcast. Last week, No, I was saying as the host, I was telling you to do your updates.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that. As the co-host, last week I drove to Arizona. Almost. I drove
to Arizona, not almost to Phoenix.
That's true. Yeah, I did make it to.
You did make it to Arizona, dude. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, you're right. I almost drove all the way to Phoenix. 21, 22, 23-ish hours solo in the car. Fortunately, caravanning with one of the other cars that made it down. And
wait, you didn't stop? I thought you were going to stop at Salt Lake.
I did. I stopped and stayed there, and then met up with Medic and Langan in Salt Lake, and then we caravanned together the rest of the way for the last 11-ish to 12 hours from Salt Lake Daisy.
There's some pretty driving there between Salt Lake and Arizona.
Oh yeah, Escalante, going that route. So it's gorgeous. The desert's really nice. So it wasn't that bad at all. One thing that was kind of weird though is like if you decide to go that route now, gonna like do your business in the cities, because all of like the connecting gas stations and stuff, they're all closed down, like COVID and stuff. So like you can get gas, but you can't go like Can't go to the bathroom anywhere, So,
That's
my
good.
car did not make it. Broke down about an hour and a half outside Phoenix. Sucks. Through a connecting rod, something. I don't know. RIP Subaru.
Dude, you should actually wait until I'm in person there too before buying a new car. Just to keep the streak alive. Because I was there for your last car purchase.
Yeah. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Or I'll buy you a car as a gift and attempt to drive it over to Arizona, and we'll see if it breaks down as well.
Dude, I mean, never mind. You sell that shirt, you could have a pretty good down payment. Okay, so I'm in Arizona.
Well, going off that real quick before you go on to Arizona. Here's the
29 minutes into the podcast in case I need to edit this out. Go.
All right, what you got in our future housing? Living situation.
No.
What?
Go ahead, but no. Okay, I mean I'll be open to it. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, there's the answer.
No, go ahead. I do want you to ask it. Go ahead.
What you got on triple? Me, you, and Bellatrix.
In the same room?
What's up?
In the same room?
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that.
All right, 10 seconds in. All right, take it away on Arizona.
I mean, a house, in the same house, maybe.
Yeah, you said
bunk beds. We can't do triple
place.
bunk beds. It's not gonna work. It's like,
yeah, just lower bunk bed. 2 people in the lower bunk bed. 1 person. We'll switch. We've already done 2 in the top bunk. That should be flexible.
Is there no such thing as a triple bunk bed?
I don't know. We might have to investigate that. We have to opposite. We're gonna need high ceilings. I'm open. I'm open to it. Like, hit me with a proposal. We'll see. I don't know. You have to make it worth my while. So.
Dude, I told you I was gonna buy you a car as a gift, dog.
Still got to make it worth my while.
Even post the car purchase.
That was basically my last week though. Drove down Friday and Saturday. Got here Sunday. We're all set up. You can tell by the cactus. Lindley pointed out, as the host pointed out in my back room. Yeah, we are halfway through our 14-day quarantine here. So because we all traveled out of state, right now it's me, Spencer Medic, Chris Langen, and Max Gordon. We're all down here in Arizona. We got equipment and everything.
Why'd you say Chris Langen's name so fast?
Chris Langen.
Chris Langen.
Langen Tots. We're all down here. We have a facility in Chandler that we're getting some space from them, and we're going to be training athletes down here. But right now, we came down early so that we could do a 14-day like out of state, self-quarantine kind of a thing in case we picked up anything while traveling, So we're all posted at the crib. I'm going to be here for another week, hopefully starting to train athletes June 1st. So I think actually today, Saturday, Mike put out like a letter from the CEO announcing it publicly. And people are, come down here, do assessments, train. We're going to be here for the short term. I definitely want to get back to Washington quickly, as the weather forecast for the next week is 109 on Wednesday and then like 110, 111 Thursday, Friday. And actually, I heard it was like raining pretty hard in Washington, but still, like, I don't know, man.
I think I missed the rain because I came back on Thursday. Really? I was in Vegas, helped my mom some stuff, but I came back on Thursday, and I think I just missed the rain.
I want to go hiking and camping so bad.
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna go on a hike.
A lot of the hikes are closed
still.
Yeah, we thought they were. We thought they were open, and we were looking at it today. Yeah, we thought we could have been looking at the wrong thing, but we were gonna go to Brady tomorrow, and I don't think it's open.
Yeah, I think the national parks might be a little different, but I think the state parks, like if you want to go like Alpine Lakes Wilderness or something, if you want to do like Mount Si, I think you can hit those right now.
I think I'm gonna do one with our future roommate Brady.
Oh, nice.
Next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit me with a couple of those so we can look them up. I'm not familiar with a bunch of the hikes around here because we're trying to look for one tomorrow.
Yeah, there's
for tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you guys are feeling real beast, I would hit Minotaur Lake and Labyrinth Mountain. That one's a wild one. It's in the Alpine Lakes. Gorgeous right now. Yeah, but Arizona, we're gonna be down here at least for like a month for sure, maybe a little longer than that. Honestly, it all just kind of hinges on when our new facility is open and when we can start training athletes again in Washington. So basically just because of like the phase reopening that's going on in Washington, we can't train athletes up there in our new massive facility that Caravan hasn't been in and seen. But as soon as we can start training athletes there, I think we'll be back, But for the time being, if anyone out there wants to train is in Arizona, June 1st.
One last time, Caravan. Forks up. Let's go.
Forks up, Arizona. So yeah, honestly, most of my last week has just been on a lot of like Arizona logistics planning. That's really been it.
Yeah, and on my end, as a guest of the podcast, I'll share what I was up to this last week. On my end, two kind of big projects that I'm wrapping up. One of them, a large kind of like force plate analysis that I've kind of teased in the past, but I thought might be interesting just kind of running through a quick perspective on the way I approached it. So a lot of this stuff is written up. I'm putting it all together. I'm going to post it somewhere publicly internally, but I'll run it by you guys to see if what you guys think, and B, just like any other thoughts. But essentially, I've matched force plate metrics to biomech metrics. We haven't done too much of the force plate metrics in general. So I've done like quite a bit of work on intra force plate correlations. So within the force plates, like which ones, because essentially there's like 30 or so derived metrics across like counter movement jumps, hop tests, squat jumps, isometric mid-thigh pulls.
Yeah. Real quick, can we the force plates are separate from the mound. So these are like jump testing, used for jump testing. They're not like integrated with the pitching.
They're separate, like kind of high performance strength KPIs that we take, that we like measure in addition to whatever pitching and hitting.
It's like the movement screen or assessment on force plates.
Yeah, so we linked it to, since in theory everyone who's here for a couple of days should have should go through mocap, should go through force plates, and then their programming will become more individualized after. But I looked at a lot of like within force plate metric interactions, linked to biomech stuff. Did a couple of mass correlations, but that's like X by N, so it's like a huge matrix to kind of parse through. What I did is I used the body weight as almost the default baseline, kind of like when you do like a classification problem, and if there's like if you're classifying people as hitters or pitchers, say, and most people are hitters, you've got to build like a better model than just like putting everyone as hitters, right? So I used the body weight of each athlete kind of as a baseline. Like I only considered something as more or as like worth noting if it actually outperformed the body weight correlation and was above like a 0.3 as like the baseline for moderate correlation. Just like I said, just kind of like an initial first level look at it. I bucketed athletes in different velo and efficiency buckets to look at differences in force plate means in that sense. And I looked at just like building, just focusing on building different models on just predicting mocap velo from force plate metrics to kind of map and like compare those models and see like which because there's so much collinearity, which happens when there's multiple variables all put together, and some of them help explain the variation in others. So mapping everything together and comparing models kind of lets you know which variables actually have like a significant coefficient in the model. So that probably seems a little bit all over the place. It'll hopefully make more sense when I put it all together and post it. So I worked on that, and then the second part was sprucing up some like pitching text notes for one of our clients, PBR, and actually that's kind of linked to what I'll present for the research articles. at the end of the podcast, but essentially I fleshed out what Brady's infamously heard me describe to past pitching trainers as like, as a project where I had them, if I can replicate for 1 second for our visual watchers, just
right.
yeah. So that's enough of a hint to know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I fleshed that out with a couple more variables. So
nice.
Quite a bit of work, but I'm happy to say that it only took me a day or two as opposed to a year or two.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll leave it at that loaded sentence.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Whatever next overlay is.
Yeah. The on the force plate stuff, I thought I had talked to you about this, but maybe not. I feel like it's pretty common that most like force plate related metrics are just like as a percentage of body weight kind of a thing. And I don't know if
there's
a
few, yeah. No, there's a ton that are based on body weight.
Right. So, but wouldn't that be like bucketing in and of itself, as opposed to like creating like groups of like body weights? Just like take the force plate metrics as a percentage of the person's body weight, and then
you weren't saying that you were bucketing, right? You were just saying that like the body mass is like the lowest. Anything is like the threshold.
I thought you were doing like clustered body weight groups.
No, I wasn't bucketing on body weight. I had more like for example, if we're looking at jump height on a counter movement jump.
Okay.
Is that something that explains variation in mound velo?
Yeah.
Sure. But does it explain more variation in mound velo than body weight? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of like things that'll explain some variation.
Yeah.
But also that's just like, okay, someone who's bigger and produces more force is gonna throw harder. As a rule, that's true. So I want to know like where the differences are. Like if you controlling for that person's like size, then what actually matters, as opposed to just like, okay, a 200-pound college athlete throws harder, like jumps higher and throws harder than like a 130-pound 15-year-old kid, something like that.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking jump height. Actually, I was mainly thinking of just like if you were looking at like the Z GRF, just like taking that, dividing it by body weight, and reporting it as a percentage. Percentage of body weight, and then looking at that metric.
Yeah.
Also, in general, I just feel like without really seeing your analysis, that is going to be pretty similar to anything we've done in the past with like functional movement screen stuff. Like, I think it's going to be pretty hard to find like major significant correlations there between like discrete event related metrics in the pitching motion that we see in the lab related to like discrete metrics on the force plate kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean some of the more interesting ones, honestly,
a lot of noise, I would guess.
Yeah, some of the more interesting ones, honestly, were not to like. I think I found a good few like pretty robust correlations to like lead knee, angular velo, in a couple cases, like things like those like KPIs, like biomech KPIs that we care about. Because obviously there's a ton of biomech KPIs that we collect, but
those would be like the only ones I would expect to.
Yeah, but a good example, and I think this will make sense to both of you guys, potentially not to any listeners or viewers, but like a good example of what I meant with the body weight kind of like screen is a lot of the elbow forces like go up in proportion to, the actual like mass of the pitcher and everything. So like elbow medial force, elbow compression force, those are going to have like pretty strong correlations with body weight.
Right.
And so like, if I was going to say like some sort of force plate KPI heavily correlated with elbow medial force, I would want to, I'm only going to keep it in mind really if it's like, it's a stronger relationship than body weight, or if it's not just like, if it's not just based in the reason they correlated with it was because of the athlete's body weight.
Yeah.
It's also something that we could probably do. I don't know, you might already do this, but like I've been looking at some of the relationships between certain metrics and elbow force in the last couple of days, and like that may be a good approach to say like judging whether or not something like some movement or some biomechanical position is going to affect or does affect elbow load. does it affect it more than velo, or is it more correlated than velo? That would be a good approach, because like a lot of these things, if you do find a relationship, it's like, yeah, but maybe the people in the sample are just throwing harder or moving faster. So like that's also just gonna be naturally the same as body mass. It's gonna naturally be higher.
Yeah.
And if you want to know the results right away, just get hired by Driveline Baseball between now and Monday, and I will be posting the results internally.
Good. All right. As the host of the podcast, I think we go into the next segment here. Perfect segue. What Lindley was just talking about into mini research investigations, specifically on the biomech end.
Yeah. So I mentioned in my quick update, we have a system where the trainers can reach out to R&D with certain questions. They're like, I think maybe this is something I've been hearing that I think we have the data to look into it, kind of prove or disprove it.
We got the data,
or at least provide some evidence to whether or not it holds weight. And so a trainer hit me up about actually Bill, I don't know what his title is, head of the pitching floor.
Not just a trainer, bro.
Assistant director.
Assistant director of
coach.
Pitching. Yeah, Coach Bill. Here. First he hit me up about the relationship between how fast somebody is moving down the mound. So we measure that as how fast somebody's center of gravity moves towards the plate from the pitching rubber, and how that relates to elbow stress. Because apparently there's a group of people in baseball, or some people like assume that moving faster down the mound is going to cause more elbow load, so a higher valgus or varus torque.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm choosing one of them, dude. Just settle on a term.
Varus. I'm a big varus guy.
Don't waffle.
Yeah, that I think me saying both is out of insecurity, because I like varus, and a lot of other people like valgus. Anyways,
just be you, man. Be you.
Yo, just making you better man, Lindley.
Yeah, I don't say hip shoulder separation anymore.
What do you say? HSS?
What do you say?
It's torso pelvis angle.
Interesting. I haven't heard you say that. That's crazy.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
I would never.
I
would never, dude. Hey, yeah, your torso pelvis angle here. You're just not getting. You're not getting enough. No.
Well, people forget that hip shoulder separation is just the same. If we end up doing relative rotations of the torso and pelvis, relative torso is just hip shoulder separation. Or local torso is just hips. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you really want to get like literal with hip shoulder separation, it just like doesn't make sense anatomically, because like you're comparing like,
well, dude, you don't have to make it personal.
Two hip sockets, two shoulder sockets, like that. Like it shouldn't be a hips and shoulder thing. I mean, it doesn't matter in the Caravan's end, because he literally gets 0. Like whether you call it X factor, K angle, hip shoulder separation, like Caravan's got 0. So.
And I still throw 69, baby.
Let's go.
Anomaly, the model breaker.
All right, back to it. Center of gravity, velocity, so how fast somebody's moving down the mountain, how it's related to elbow load. We found we have these like, I don't know, it was like 100 sessions, like 400 sessions and like 100 retest pairs in our current database with our latest like biomechanics calculations. So it was pretty simple. Like at the beginning, it was just simple comparing COG, or the center of gravity velocity, to the 3 metrics that we use for elbow load, which are 1, absolute varus moment, and then the second one is normalized varus moment. So we take the varus moment divided by height and weight, and then the third one is efficiency, or what we call efficiency. So how many units of velocity do you get per unit of normalized elbow varus moment?
Dull eyes, brother.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Brutal.
That was commitment, right?
What?
Varus moment. All in.
Yeah, all in. Yeah, I called Caravan out because I thought one of the columns was wrong, And then because it was like just on the same order of magnitude as what it usually is. And he's like, you're not looking at the normalized column. And I was like, ah, lies, brother.
Gotcha. Damn.
And so at first there did seem to be a relationship. So I like broke it in
between
I like
comps?
What's that?
Were those between pitcher comps?
Between sessions or
So within?
Yeah. So it's just like comparing. No. It was just all the throws. Like between pitchers. So all of the throws in our database was the center of gravity velocity related to elbow load, and it did seem to have like it was a significant relationship.
Really?
So I broke it down a little bit more into So I broke it down a little bit more because it looked, when I plotted the data, it looked like there was a single group that was kind of affecting the way the correlation was calculating. So broke it down into 3 buckets. So the bottom third, middle third, and top third.
All 3 of them, or?
Yeah. No, 2 of them. And then the
efficiency no. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So I broke it down into 3 buckets: the bottom third of center of gravity velocity, the middle third of center of gravity velocity, and then the top third, and then compared and then found the means in those group. And those trends didn't seem to follow. So the top third and center of gravity velocity didn't have a way greater mean and elbow load than the middle. And so I broke it down and did scatter plots and correlations for each of those groups, and found that the first group was correlated, the second 2 were not.
So the
middle
slowest?
third and the top third, the slowest one, there was a relationship between center of gravity velocity and elbow load.
Okay.
And then in that plot, there was one and then I compared. I was like, okay, well, could this just be due to like the slowest throwers in our? It's just like center of gravity velocity is just one of those things that's limiting somebody's velocity. So the lack of velocity is leading to lower elbow load.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So in that case, it could be related.
Yeah.
And so I plotted center of gravity velocity to pitch velocity, and that was very related. And then I did pitch velocity to elbow moment in those, and then found that those were both related. So in one of those plots, I saw that there was one group that was just super low velocity, and it seemed to be a really linear trend. So I looked at just that group, and there was a strong correlation between center of gravity, velocity, and elbow load. But when I removed them, the rest of the data set, there was no relationship. The R was like negative 0.01 or something.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, I think, at least in my mind.
There was basically like a few youth athletes or in just like slower throwing, like not as elite athletes in the data set that were creating what seemed to be a significant relationship. And then when those were taken out, there was no relationship between how fast somebody moved down the mound and their elbow load. Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons that we use the efficiency metric, because since elbow load, because the Varus moment is going to be so related to velocity, if we can try to take velocity out of that measurement by effectively normalizing to it, we can hopefully try to find like more direct relationships between biomechanics and or like certain biomechanical factors and how much somebody's loading their elbow. So that was the first one. Then the second one was just like how variable are pitchers' mechanics. So I looked through basically the most important ones that we used on our biomechanics report.
Well, you looked through the SDs of like a bunch of all the basically points of interest.
Yeah. So I took I like listed the metrics that are important on our report basically, and I just did that kind of like picked them out from the report, and then the ones that I focus on most when I'm presenting a report to an athlete. Just because there's a bunch already, and I asked.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked.
Yeah, there's a bunch already, and I asked Caravan if we have to adjust the alpha value on correlations, because I thought at one point he said the correlation coefficient already like takes into account like the number of comparisons. I don't know. I just asked him, and like because we do have to adjust the alpha value on that, it makes it really hard to find a relationship if we're comparing 25 variables, which is what I was doing. But anyways, I took all those. I found the within session. So I didn't separate athletes, but I found the within session standard deviation of the metrics that I chose, the 25 metrics, and then and then just like showed those on scatter plots and found the median. And I chose median instead of the mean because there was like a bunch that was really low variability, and then there was, I don't know, like 30 sessions or something where the variability was a bit higher, and that would have heavily like changed the mean. So I chose median instead, and it looked like the median was around, like, for most of the positional metrics, it was around like 2 degrees, like 2 degrees of standard deviation, which means that we can, if I'm going to try to interpret that basically. Every throw, on every throw, we can expect this metric to change or to deviate 2 degrees from the mean. So which, like,
it's probably honestly like, I was gonna say that's gonna be close to within like millimeter accuracy on some, I would think.
Yeah, maybe. And it's like, I don't know, interpreting how much variability that is, like in terms of like clinical significance, is just like, it's not a lot. But then I think on
like, even if you remove just like the hardware or like the capture and processing, variance, the capture, it's like you're
like,
really,
and if you
really
were to look at somebody that has, this is what I told Bill, I was like, if you look at somebody that has 30 degrees of scap attraction, or like horizontal abduction versus 28, you're not going to be able to notice the difference.
I mean, also you have to think about the other variability that could be being introduced there is just frame rate. Like 240 frames per second, right? So you're talking, especially like, imagine if an event is tagged like the length of a frame different, 1-to-1.
Yeah, that's definitely enough for a couple degrees.
So, and also in general, like we have a very conservative filter. We do not filter much. Very like the low Butterworth we do in the processing pipeline is very so. So
well, it is a high order. Or is it low order Butterworth?
It's a high cutoff. So usually
it's a low filter like with a high cutoff.
Yeah. Okay.
So we let a lot of data. We let a lot of data through. We do not filter that aggressively. I think especially relative to other
conservative though.
What's up?
Like, I would say that's not conservative.
I don't know. I feel like if you were to say I liberally filter my data, then I would assume that they're filtering like
aggressively.
Drastically.
Yeah, I don't know the word there. Was it? Should I have used liberally?
I don't know either. That's what kind of.
I guess I should have just said like we don't aggressively filter. Because like even in like if you go to the Visual 3D documentation on like the Butterworth filter command stuff, like they set their cutoff at like 6. Ours is like 20. So
So I just like plotted those and found the median standard deviation of each of the metrics just for like reference. And then I did some relationships between variability of each metric. And then he wanted to know pitch velocity. And then I also did the 3 elbow load metrics. And then so I did the correlations for those. There was one like really big outlier that was just like really high standard deviation that I took out because it was affecting the correlations like way too much. And so I found there were like 3 significant relationships. It was lead knee velocity metrics, variability in like lead knee velocity at ball release, or lead knee extension velocity at ball release, max lead knee extension velocity were both related to the elbow load. Makes sense. Variability in stride length was related to velocity, but the R's
that one's like, a little weird.
Yeah, those the R's were all like 0.13 or something, and it was barely significant when I did not adjust for how many comparisons I did. When I adjusted for the 25 comparisons that I did for each of the metrics, and which is obviously going to affect it like a lot. There was no significance, but then those 3 that were significant, or I think there was 4 of them, because the ones that were related to normalized varus moment were also related to efficiency. So I plotted those just for like to look at the relationship on a scatter plot to see like, even though they're not significant after comparing from the multiple comparison, I plotted them anyways so that you could see what the relationship looked like, and it just looked like pretty much noise. And there's just like maybe 10 points that look like there might be a relationship, which is pretty subjective. And like my lack of experience with that type of analysis probably like was a shortfall to those, or to like that comparison. But I think generally it's safe to say that there's not a super big amount of variability between pitches, at least in the same environment, throwing with the same intent, same pitch, all that. And then generally it doesn't affect pitching mechanics as a whole.
You said R squared or R was 0.13?
R.
Well, I was going to mention one thing that I kind of obscurely mentioned it when I was talking about the force plate stuff, but when it comes to mass correlations, like since if you're going to apply like some multiple comparisons adjustment, all the p-values will have to be like very low to pass like a criteria when you do like, just because it can easily increase like the number of tests. I do sometimes I often think like it makes more sense to just compare like the effect size is a term for it. Which is like, rather than exact p-value, the effect size would be like, which is what I mentioned for the force plate stuff, like 0.3 to 0.5 for correlation coefficient is like a moderate association, and then 0.5 on is like a heavy association. So like the pros to do an effect size, I mean, again, there's like a less of a scientific it's not an IRB study, so you're not gonna be upheld to the same standards per se. But looking at it just from effect size, you don't have to worry about the sample size, because the sample size also influences like the p-value, and you can actually think about it in terms of, rather than what are the chances that like this association is significant, it's more like how large is this association, so
it's like the same comparison between statistical significance and like clinical significance, right? Like I know in the PT world, they have these like standard tests where it's like you have to score this much higher for it to be clinically significant, and they like rate these tests based on those. And I was actually going to ask you about I assume you use I think it's Cohen's
D.
Effect size. I actually reported that for the weighted ball metrics. No, I think it was in Mount Position metrics, because like it just gives you a little bit more insight into p-value. Doesn't give you any like information about how big it is. Like if the Cohen's D effect size isn't going to be super great with a 2-degree difference in means.
I use Cohen's D for I think I might use it for the KBMG study. Because in that case, I was looking at like difference in EMG magnitude peaks, and the variance was so high, or something. I forget what the reason was, but I was like, this doesn't really make too much sense, like trying to report in traditional like p-value formats. So
gotcha. But Cohen's D does take into account sample size like inherently, right? Because it takes into account standard deviation or the variance.
Right. But it doesn't like cut down the like variance to like a very low standard error.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So did those two. Those were the requests. They're really fun too. I hadn't really done those type of that type of work for the training floor, and it was like a fun change of pace.
Dude, I think you just hit a more stats heavy section than I've ever hit.
Yeah. Sorry if that got a little muddled down for the audience.
No, so main points to take away are, I think, Varus, call it Varus rather than valgus torque. And
first moment.
Of course.
I think there's a couple. I had many thoughts while you went through those. The last one I had, by the way, it makes sense on the like knee extension angular velocity variance, just because like those metrics like correlate so well with velocity, and like velocity and the loading metrics correlating well, and then like the knee angle velocity stuff probably having a higher variance in harder throwers because the just like magnitude of it is so much higher, right? In terms of like knee extension angular velocity, like if your average is 400, a standard deviation of 50 at that end, relative to the value, right? So did you do any like what's that called, Caravan?
Coefficient of variation.
But when you put it, we were doing this with the tech validations. When you put it like relative as like a percentage relative to the value of the metric, kind of a thing.
Oh, mean absolute percentage error.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, MAPE.
Error, but that's when isn't that where you're comparing like means?
Yeah, it's like accuracy analysis.
But you're doing it also as like a percentage of the value, right? Because like you could have standard deviation, like 50 degrees per second standard deviation at a 200 degree per second knee extension angular velocity is much different than 50 degrees per second standard deviation at 400, right?
Yeah,
it's easier to have more variance at higher velocities, or it's easier to have greater standard deviation at higher velocity.
Yeah, definitely. I created I did calculate coefficient of variation, which takes into account the mean value of the point of the metric. So I did have a data frame of that, but then I decided against using that for the main analysis, which like in hindsight I probably should have for the correlations, but Caravan, what are you doing? But the reason I like decided against it was for the values that are around 0. I'm trying to think of the ones like for trunk angle at foot plant, for example.
Or even COG.
Shooting for COG. Yeah, we're looking for really a value that's pretty low. And so the standard deviation is going to affect the coefficient of variation way more than like, I don't know, something that's usually in the ballpark of like 160 degrees, like MER or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what we were seeing in the tech validation stuff too. But that makes sense. Like when you said leading extension angular video, that just like made sense there because like as velocity increases, correlates with velocity, which correlates with the loading rates, those kind of things. The stride length one is weird. I'm not. I'm a little confused on the stride length one. That one's interesting. But going back to the first, the first analysis that you were doing, I had a couple of thoughts with that. So first would be, and I think that we talked about this paper on the podcast at some point, like the within correlations of velocity and loading rates being sorry guys, I'm getting blown up. I'm getting Slack messages like distracting me on the side.
Who are you getting blown up by, dog?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. So the paper where the within pitcher correlations for like velocity and those loading rates were much stronger than like doing the between, and like Caravan and I were talking about that, about how if we had like more data points at that within pitchers, like that would be the one that I would want to see, or like COG velo. So like if you had, say like 4 reports or a huge data set of people look at how relative to their own like COG velo changes and their loading rates as opposed to like across the whole, like that would be the analysis that I would want to on that.
Yeah,
one.
I
mean, you could even do that just with like assessment to retest, like 1-to-1, Like
yeah, definitely. I eventually
like percentage of COG velo changes and then percentage of loading rate changes.
Yeah, definitely. I talked to Caravan after this was done because I sent him. I had him review it as the stats guy. I hit him with my like synopsis of what the investigation like showed me, and he's like, yeah, I'd probably use the linear mix model to try and tease out any within subjects, or like look at within subject effects, which is definitely a limitation. But my reasoning originally was that if I was to look at, I like test to retest, that makes sense, and that was, I just like didn't think about that as much. Like if we were looking at within subject, like between your 3 throws, if higher COG velo was going to be related to higher elbow, the Varus moment.
Yeah, that's the one I'd want to see.
Yeah.
And then the other thought I had was, okay, so you clustered them into like 3 groups of COG velo, and we're looking at the correlations there, and the lower group had the better correlation kind of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that also makes sense and is really interesting, and I think it's actually getting at COG velo being a like a threshold metric, you know?
Yeah,
like at the low end, you just need like a little bit, you know, and then as soon as you cross that threshold, then after that it's like flat, you know, like more isn't necessarily better, less isn't worse kind of a thing. But on the low end, that's where you have that like high relationship or correlation with velocity. And that's what we were seeing in the metric audit too, was like COG velo across the board didn't necessarily like linearly correlate with velocity. But in like the early portion, you know, it was like one of those threshold metrics. How fast do you need to linearly be moving to like have enough to produce velocity?
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple of times already with like the outlying variables affecting correlation so much. In that lower group, there was one data point that was like, it seemed on trend, so that's why I didn't leave it. And like all my outlier analysis throughout this whole thing was pretty subjective. Like it was just like, all right, that's just clearly not like representative of the data set. But there was one that was like 1.5 meters per second down the mountain, which is a whole meter per second lower than what we usually shoot for with our athletes. So
that was me.
So I think, and like that could have been, I probably should have looked at it to see how much that one was affecting the correlation itself. But it's possible that was like a big part of it, because if you're that deficient and you're creating that little velocity towards the plate, then like your ceiling for velo is probably pretty low.
Yeah. No, I would really like to see the like within comparisons. And to increase the sample size, you could actually do it on like a per pitch basis.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you, Lindley. Did you do it on a per pitch or per subject?
I'm guessing it was per. Oh, you did? Wait, you did?
Yeah, I did. I
hit him with
all the pitches.
Yeah, I hit him with a per pitch DB.
Damn, that's tight. Yeah, I assumed the whole time you were just doing it on like session. Like session.
That's what I was telling him. That's what I was telling him. You could do like a linear mixed model.
Yeah.
Like having the subject or the athlete throwing be the fixed effect.
Yeah, I mean, if you already have the per pitch thing, like all it would take would be three tests for a guy to have like nine data points there of COG velos and loading rates. So it's yeah. And then I think the correlations in my mind for the loading rates made sense too. Where it was like you were saying the two like Varus moment and normalized Varus moment correlated, and then efficiency not as much, right?
Yeah. So that was the original reason that I was like, all right, well then maybe velocity is like what's up here.
Right, and that makes sense too, just because the COG velo being like a good correlate for velocity in general, and then again like velocity correlating with the loading rates, and then like efficiency is the one that takes that out of the equation. So that's where you're gonna like not see it as quite the same.
And that one group of data points that I took out because it was like pretty separate from the rest of them, they were all below like 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I mean, this isn't representative of the athletes that we train too much on a regular basis anyway. So
yeah, it's fire segment.
Yo, by the way, quick cue for you, Brady. Dude, what's your setup looking like there? Because sometimes you're like your camera views so blurry sometimes, and then off your glasses, everything looks like pretty crazy. You have crazy reflection off your glasses.
Oh, I think like I don't have the light on in here, you know, and so like.
Oh yeah. When you get close, I can't see it, but like when you're like a foot away, it just looks crazy.
Yeah, so I don't have the light on here, so I think the camera's trying to like focus a bunch when I move. Also, I'm in standing desk mode, so I'm moving a lot.
What's your setup?
You're standing up. That's tight.
Yeah, I'm standing up. setup is I'm just in a room. I'm pretty sure this is a garage that got converted into a room for Airbnb.
Because your door's off the hinges, right?
I don't even have a door. It doesn't.
You know,
have a
dude,
door.
I'm going setting mode too. I'm going setting mode too. Might as well show off my shirt.
All right. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's like a converted garage into a room. There wasn't a door when we got here. Gordo built one out of a piece of plywood and some foam and some handles. Yeah, I think it's just kind of like dark. And then, I mean, I have like all my screens, which yeah, it's a good point. They're like very reflective of my glasses. Kind of like I don't own a pair of sunglasses, and I've been out reading by the pool without sunglasses, but then wearing blue light glasses in the screens. There's definitely like sunglasses would do much more for my eyes outside than these blue light glasses do, right? Like, there's no way that there's the same returns there.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Yeah, but it's pretty chill setup. Hasn't gotten too hot yet. I think next week's gonna be.
How many monitors?
What? Can't hear you. Too far away from your mic. I think you're gonna have to sit back down.
How many monitors?
Just the. I think I have 3. I got one in front of me, one to the side, and then my laptop.
All right, Dio, take it away. Take it away on the D1 baseball stuff.
Actually, I think we like killed that segment, and quick pitch. I'm open to tabling D1 new baseball model until next week and doing it as a review, because I was actually reading it a bit more, and there's actually a 35-page report with this, with a bunch of like pretty in-depth analysis that I think would be pretty interesting to look at next week. A quick little 2-minute thing on it. It was just like D1 baseball is pretty crazy right now. Transfer portal is popping. There's like a bunch of people in the transfer portal. Schools are starting to cancel programs, pulling that up even more. And yeah, I think there's going to be a scenario in the fall where there's people that don't have a place to play because like everyone got eligibility and the draft changing, all of that. And then also what's going on, a bunch of Power 5 coaches got together. I think it looks like it's primarily led by with Michigan, and they submitted a proposal for the 2022 season for a fall baseball season. But yeah, we should talk about
just changing like the mechanics of the schedule and things.
Yeah, I think it's more or less like a 4 to 6 week delay on things, and then there's some changes
for the Midwest
with fall semester and spring semester. A lot of it's like financial and athlete, academic, and potential like injury things. But just like looking at it again, I actually want to read this whole report a little more, and we can table it for next podcast, because we got pretty in depth there. So
I'm also down to like still make it really clickbaity, like say like have that be the first thing in the title.
New D1 baseball model.
Yeah, D1 baseball transfer, and to have us only talk about it for a minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then we could hit it again the next week.
Yeah,
and not talk about it because we'll get into some other update.
D1 baseball model.
Yeah, but for real.
How deep are we in though? Should we also table the?
I think we're at like 57 minutes. I would think. We might be past an hour at this point. But I think that was a pretty fire discussion. I mean, what do you think? You want to table what makes a change? What makes a good changeup? That's the last topic of the night.
Yeah, let's table it.
Okay, good, because I definitely was not. I don't know if I was going to be able to just like look at you from this angle for the whole time.
Yeah, let's do an unprecedented move and table 2 of 3 specific
so
topics.
Unprecedentedly, didn't get to the last two topics because we talked so much about mini research investigations and we just
Hey, for all the sponsors that we have, we can just use the extra space on the overlay.
Yeah.
With the 2 segments we didn't get to for extra ads that we can add on there. So.
Ooh.
Do you guys want to try starting like our own ads, like before we get sponsors? So like people will like see us doing ads for them. Like, do you guys have a company in mind that you want to do ads for?
Dude,
Ruben's Brews.
Ruben's Brews would be good.
We could just plug beer. That's kind of a good idea. It's on brand.
Yeah, we got beer ads.
Honestly, I went through this whole Otis. So I got pretty smacked.
Yeah, I drink the not. Yeah, I'm super down. I have a hookup with Natty Light.
No, you don't. You actually?
Yeah.
His sister.
My little sister, Maddie Light. She was like she was like a marketing rep.
You're being serious.
I'm dead
serious.
serious.
She legally changed her middle name.
She almost got a job with Anheuser. Well, I think she's.
Oh,
I gotta show you guys something. Actually, she just did this thing, and it's really good. For like an application for this like marketing internship with Natty Light. But yeah, I'll send it to you later. I'm in on beer sponsorships. That's what I'm saying. I'm reaching out.
That's
when one of you guys go and you pick up a little hazy 4-pack for me. If you want to talk to Ruben, say like, hey,
I'm bringing that over, dude.
We do this podcast. We drink beer. We talk about things. And I think across, like the only one that could rival it would maybe be Fremont, but Ruben's has to have the most airtime on this podcast as far as beer goes, right?
I think Fremont might have it, hononsly.
Yeah, because we had that
we had like 4 weeks straight where I was just drinking the 6-packs you were buying.
We just crushed Lushes and Sky Kraken.
Yeah.
You're
right.
That's right.
Dude, I am pumped for like probably like a month down the road when we can hit Matador, happy hour nachos,
oh my God,
and a Lush IPA, baby.
Dude.
Yeah.
No idea. I have had I've had Cane's. Had Cane's first time. Like first night we got in, and then
let's go forward ready, baby.
Last night I Uber Eats Filiberto's carne asada fries. So yeah, the easy's going well. But I think that's gonna wrap it. You guys good? Wrap the
Works up, dude. Don't forget.
Works up. That'll do it for what'd you say, Caravan? Episode 17, recorded on Sunday.
I think 16, dude.
It is 16. All right.
I'm still open for that episode 17 tomorrow.
Lindley, did you watch the last episode?
Did not.
All right.
Why?
No.
I'm just saying, the ending of it is pretty fire. So much so that it might heat someone up and I don't know, make them perspire a little, and they might have pointed it out on the podcast.
Wait, that was the last one? I think that was 2 episodes ago.
Might not have been cut. I don't know. I don't remember which one it was. But
well, the one about me being sweaty was definitely on there, and I did see that.
And that's where we'll end this one too, right there, in the podcast with Lindley being sweaty again. We'll see you guys later.
See you, boys.